So how I would usually start is, you know, pick a pose. I would usually use Pinterest for this. If you don't use Pinterest, it's really useful for finding poses because it kind of recommends you more poses as you go. If you just type in dynamic poses, you know, you'll get a bunch of this stuff. Oh, this isn't playing. There we go. So yeah, you'll just get a lot of different poses, right? And then when you click on one, it will also recommend you poses based on that pose. So it's really useful if you're, you know, if you know you're going to work on a certain archetype, like a weapon archetype or something, because you just type that in and it will usually give you just like hundreds of poses. And you can go forever. Sorry, I went a bit fast there.
I think that was one of the questions is what did you Google to get your poses? So dynamic poses.
Google's okay. I probably wouldn't use Google. I mean, you can, but Pinterest I always find a lot easier. It's you can also make boards and things, so you can have like specific boards for specific types of poses or, you know, weapon archetypes.
Yep.
You can just build up a whole thing on there. It's really useful. Yeah. All these ones obviously don't use. That's probably not a good pose to use as a animation. So yeah, I choose a pose. This guy, I figured he looks pretty interesting. I usually try to pick ones that don't look like walk cycles because that will put something in my head of like, oh, this is how a walk cycle is probably going to look already. So I try to think of one where I'm like, how, you know, usually one way is the hand is involved as well. It just makes it a bit more interesting. Yeah, or like something like this, right? Like how would this even be a cycle, a walk cycle? But that's part of the fun because, you know, then you have to actually force yourself to be creative. You don't just think, oh, it will probably be this because that's what it looks like. Like part of the fun is trying to work something out that seems impossible and then and do it that way. So here's me. Another tip for the industry, I guess, is I always reference my rigs in. I don't know if that's just something people are taught these days, but, you know, just so that if the rig ever gets updated, you know, you'll always have it referenced in and it will always update rather than importing it in. And then you've got to make a new file with the new rig or copy and paste the keys. So what's next? This is just a quick thing. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I didn't know the level of experience here, but if you do get a rig and the texture isn't showing up, it's probably because it's set to the local machine of whoever made it. This happens quite a lot. So, you know, make sure, you know, you go to right-click the, where's it gone? Yeah, go to material attributes and just find the new texture, basically. I won't spend too long on that.
Yeah, one of my lecturers always hounded us on setting the project as well. You know, creating a new...
I actually don't do that. So
no, okay.
You probably should. Like, I understand why it's useful because it takes you straight to the correct location. But yeah, so I'm just, I don't know. I'm lazy, I guess.
Yeah.
Like it takes so long. I have to go file and then set project. Too much. Yeah, I guess this is just a good time to set all your preferences as well. You know, hopefully they'll already be set, but one tip, always set infinite undo because it's a lifesaver. 50 undos is not enough.
Autosave as well?
I usually do not. It depends if I have other things that autosave for me. Like I think Animbot has an autosave feature, right? Did I don't know if I did set up autosave on this one, but yeah, that's definitely a good tip. I usually set my tangents as well to flat and stepped just because I work on blocking.
Okay.
I know some people like to go straight into spline. That's chaos for me. I can't do it. I have to work in individual poses because I'm simple.
It's so fun.
Yeah,
I guess it comes down to how you're taught as well. I was always taught to block in stepped, and then getting onto a workflow where you're blocking in spline, it's just completely different mind shift. It can mess with you.
I mean, most studios I go to, they kind of just let you do whatever you want, like
Right.
And even at Riot, I think Lana, who you were talking about earlier, I think she blocks in spline. She does spline from the start.
Yep.
Yeah, and I thought that was madness when she told me, but but you know, it works for her, and she says it's a lot faster for her, and that makes sense.
Yep.
You know.
Sure.
But for me, it just, I don't know, I can't handle it. I just like to see the individual poses. So yeah, then next I would set up 2 cameras. Hold on. So yeah, video too long. I can't scrub correctly. Okay, where am I? Here we go. Yeah, for this pose cycle, I was actually there. I click this button and it just gives you 2 views. And then I'd usually set up 2 cameras. Have one for the image plane for the image. So I set everything to off, and then only set image planes. It takes me a while to find. There you go. So then you literally just have a camera for the image when you're working on a pose cycle. It's just good in general for if you're using reference as well, just to have those 2 views. I know there's other ways to bring references in, but yeah. So yeah, I choose my image, and then that just basically stays there. And then I kind of, what do I do next? Yeah, I guess the first thing I do is just try to recreate this pose. You can also have the image plane in here, I guess, and then just kind of eyeball it that way, I guess. So it's easy to match, but yeah, I find it easier just to have 2 separate views. So
I guess with having it over the top of your rig, in a way, it's almost tracing, right? But if it's side by side, then there's a bit more interpretation that you're able to do. You're not really confined by what the actual pose is. So you can adjust, maybe get a little bit more flow or some more curve in the actual pose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd also never used a rig before, so some of this is just me trying to work out, like, do I have stretchy limbs? I hope so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is one that we just put on the website for the Anim Challenge as well.
Yeah, I thought I'd use it. And because I was trying to make this video not too long, I didn't want to choose one with, like, you know, facial expressions and all that kind of stuff, because it would just end up being like a 5-hour video.
Right.
But so I kind of went for the simple one. Yeah, I usually try to plant the hand first, or like plant whatever's contacting. And then yeah, I just go through, make the rig, make the pose. I keep this arm in FK because I know I'm probably not gonna use it for a while. This one I need because it plants, but the other, oh, sorry. But yeah, I would just focus on the things you know you're going to need, and then don't worry about anything else for now. Just make the pose. And if you know you're not going to need to do anything with this arm, if you're not planning on planting it, yeah, I just leave it alone.
Yep.
What am I up to? Yeah, I can set this to fast now because yeah, I'm just going to go a bit faster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of timestamped some parts in this, but then there are times when it's just me animating, so it's probably not as interesting. So if there are any questions or you want to chat about anything else,
I noticed
you can do that during these times.
you started with the hand on the ground. Is that because that's kind of where everything's coming from? Is that hand, or?
Yeah, I think that was my idea.
Yeah.
Like I knew where that was going to be, and it's, you know,
Mm.
I guess because when I was thinking about this, I was, you know, generally with walk cycles, you have like the contact pose and the passing pose and up and down.
Yep.
So I was trying to work out which one this would be, because I was still working out what I was actually going to do for this. And yeah, I figured like, well, this seems like a contact pose kind of, but it's also kind of it could be a passing pose depending on which direction he's going, right? Like if he's going that way or if he's coming towards the camera.
Right.
It could be either one.
Yeah.
Or but yeah, just because I knew where that was going to be, and like he's kind of holding his weight on that hand, it just made sense to start with the hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if there was a particular reason. It was just that's kind of where my mind went.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm just kind of eyeballing the pose. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like I said, it's just based on the pose. It doesn't have to actually be, you know, every tiny detail. Like if you overlay the image, it doesn't have to be exact. But
yep.
Oh, I've gone ahead a bit. Where am I at? So yeah, one thing I usually do with this when I'm blocking things out is I make sure that I select everything and set a key. So I usually just keep it linear for now. Just do like every 10 frames. Because if you don't do that, you might move a control and it will auto key it, and then you might forget that you haven't keyed the whole key.
Right.
And then when you spline it, you know, you're going to have arms drifting all over the place.
Yep.
So just to make sure that, you know, the whole pose is keyed, that's, yeah, just remember to do that. So every new pose, select everything, set a key. Yeah, I guess next I just kind of start blocking out the other poses, you know.
Right. So as you're blocking out this first pose, you're thinking, how's this character going to move? And then is it just experimenting, or I'm sure we'll see?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had something in my head, like as I was working, I was like, okay, I'll probably want to, I realized it's kind of like a vaulting pose. Like it's as if he's vaulting over something, but I didn't just want to do it. Like it looks like he's coming towards camera in a way. So I kind of went a bit rogue and went the other way.
Yeah.
Just to make it harder for myself.
Yeah.
Because I thought, well, that's not going to be super interesting if it's just a vault. So yeah, I thought I'd go left, screen left, and yeah, have him go that way really. So I was just trying to work out like, well, what would be the next pose? I guess he would kind of like bring his body in a bit and try to like push his legs out and push himself off that way, like because his arm's going to be pushing him that way, kind of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, sometimes, I mean, I usually do work in like key poses, so with a walk cycle, but when it's something like this and I'm trying to work it out, I sometimes just go straight ahead and just start keying what makes sense to me. Just so that it helps me figure it out, you know, like, because I don't really know for sure where the next contact pose is going to be, and I kind of have to work it out visually. So yeah, whereas with a regular walk cycle, you kind of know, you know, this foot plants, then it, you know, the body goes down, all that kind of stuff. You kind of know what happens. Whereas here, I'm like, well, the arm is technically a leg in that case here, and then you know, how is he? I'm just basically trying to work out like how is he gonna shift his weight to the next part and make it look believable. Because I guess with poses like this, I mean, I can't hold my weight like that, and you know, I was trying to work out like, is this even possible, and would someone be able to do it? And technically, like, I don't think you have to make it realistic. Like, someone doesn't have to actually be able to do it, but it has to be believable to some extent.
Yep.
Like as long as things look right and the physics make sense and you know, it's believable in your mind, then that's what matters really, I guess.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, one thing I forgot to mention is I usually do try to like feel it out a bit before I start animating. So even though I can't, I couldn't actually do this walk cycle I end up with, I kind of like tried to put my weight on my hand and try to like lift myself up and feel where, if I was going to push that way, like what would come next, and like how would I push my weight across. Yeah, I try to do it on a soft floor if possible.
Yeah.
Because it can get quite painful.
Just in case something goes drastically wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing as well. What you just said is just feeling it out. Get out of your chair and actually notice what's happening in your body, and that's really going to inform a lot of your posing decisions as well, and really help you get that believability into the animation. Yeah,
because I guess with a lot of stylized stuff, like when I was working on League, a lot of it, you know, I'd never be able to do, like a lot of these attacks and things, or you know, most of it I couldn't do. But even just feeling it out and trying to like jump in the air and do the pose, or you know, if it's on the ground, trying to get on the ground and do whatever it is, it just helps somehow, like mentally, for you to work it out, like to work out, okay, this should happen next, because I can feel I'm pushing this way and then this is happening and my shoulder's moving. Yeah, it's just good to feel it out really, because a lot of that stuff you can't get video reference for. Like with this, like I don't even know what I'd search for. I guess I could search for vault, but then it would give me, you know, just a regular vault, and I didn't really want it to be that, and I didn't really want to get that in my head as well, because then I might be stuck with that idea and think, and it would end up like a vault, like a normal vault. So with stuff like this, you just kind of have to feel it out and make it up as you go along.
Yeah. So is this the third pose now we're on?
Oh wait, sorry, I have the range set. I don't know if you've used Keyframe Pro. So it looped. Where was I up to? Let's just skip ahead.
I think.
Have we seen this yet?
No, we haven't seen this.
Let me speed it up.
Great.
So yeah. So this is kind of him just vaulting off his hand. So I wanted to get this pose change, because he kind of brings his body in a little bit on the push, and then I'm trying to like get that stretch out. So he's pushing his leg forward to help, you know, give him momentum. It just made sense in my mind that that's kind of what you would do. You'd kind of like try to push yourself and try to use your legs in some way to kind of push yourself that way.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, at this point, I wasn't really sure where I was going with it. So I was like, this could go horribly wrong. But
did that happen in any of your other animations that you did, where you got to a point and realized this isn't going to work and have to go back and start again?
Oh yeah, I have quite a lot of unfinished pose cycles.
Yeah.
Because I kind of like spent a certain amount of time on it and then was like, this isn't feeling very good, or you know, it just looks bad, or it's just not interesting enough. So yeah, I would usually just quit, or just rage quit. Rather than start again. I just rage quit and choose a different rig.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I guess like here I'm turning the camera just to kind of like, I'm not gonna I mean, generally I wouldn't show it from this view, because I would use the view from the pose. But if you don't, sometimes the leg is way off to the side and it's like stretching and it shouldn't be. So that's kind of why I'm changing the camera there. It's, you know, it's not because I need it to look good in all angles. It's just because, you know, sometimes the leg will be stretching because it's coming off to the side. So I was just trying to make sure that physically it made sense, just in case I got any of that stretching.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, so far it seems to be going. He's moving forwards at least.
Yeah.
So what's next? I can probably move along a bit.
That's cool.
But yeah, you can. I guess you can probably just see. I'm just trying to move things around and see what I can do next. Because I guess with a normal walk cycle, you kind of do mirror it, right? Like you do like a left foot. Then once you've done that part, you can mostly just mirror and do the right side. But I guess with this, you can't really do that because it's not going to work as a mirror, obviously.
Yeah.
So I just kind of had to think like, now what do I do now? So I was trying to think like, I guess I need to use the legs next. So I kind of have this like salmon leap going on. It's oh, sorry, it's starting up. I kind of end up with this like salmon leap just to give it a bit of variation as well. So you have that like small hop with the hand, and then you have this big leap with both feet. Just gives it a bit more interest and variation.
And you're keeping the planted hand in IK as well. You don't switch to FK when it's in the air. You just
I mean, I usually do use IK most of the time.
Yep.
I just like to have that control. Like I don't like it when I change the pose slightly and then the arm moves with it, and I'm like, oh, now I need to adjust the arm. Like I just like to have things where I left it,
Yeah.
So if I know I've left the hand there, then it's there. It's not like if I rotate the torso and now the hand's over here and I need to counter it. But yeah, I understand if I know the action is going to be in the air a lot, like if the first 3 frames is just them jumping into the air and then the rest of the attack is in the air, I sometimes will switch to FK. Or like when people do like jumps and then roll and do like a spiral or something, it's just easier to use FK. But most of the time I'll use IK.
Yep.
So yeah, we've got a salmon leap going on. What's next? See if there's anything interesting. I guess, yeah, because we're kind of running out of time. I'll move forward a bit. So this little tip, so when I get to here, right, so far I've been kind of animating so he continues to move forwards away from his the main control, or the root control. But really I want it on the center. I mean, you don't have to, but I think just because I work in games, I'm so used to things just looping on the center spot. Here I'm I want to test if the loop actually works. And it's hard because he's not on the center, so he'll just keep resetting back to the middle. So you can, in the graph editor, you can use cycle with offset, and then it will cycle, but it will continue to move forwards. So yeah, if you didn't know you could use that, hang on, let me go back. It's in curves, post infinity or pre, and then cycle with offset, and then that should do the loop, but he'll continue to move forwards away from the center. So you can kind of test the loop that way before you start adjusting things. And
that looks great. Yeah, because all of a sudden, if you've got an arm that's just flying way off to the left or right, or a leg's getting left behind, then
yeah,
you'll see it.
Yeah, it's just a good way to test it before you actually decide to, if you are going to bring it back to center. It's just, make sure it's right first. Yeah, so I guess next I do that. I kind of push it all back to the middle, and I just kind of eyeball it really. Where is that bit? So yeah, I just grab the controls I need to move it all as one piece, and then just bring them all back and just try to work out, where the feet and the hand should be when they're kind of pushing off.
Okay.
It's probably not the most efficient way to do it, just eyeballing it. But yeah, it works for me. And it's like, I guess if you're not working in games, you might not need to worry about this too much, but it's something that's ingrained into me, that I need to bring everything back to the center so that it can cycle properly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because with the walk cycle, I was always taught you put the same translation that's on the COG onto the world control, so that's moving backwards as that's trying to move forwards, and it stays in the same spot. But with something like this, it's probably a little bit tricky to do, right?
Yeah. So one thing did I do that? One thing I should come back to. It's the thing that you mentioned earlier, about copying the pose.
Yep.
Where was it? Yeah, using, obviously, that. Is that it? No? Oh, I know why. Yeah, like right now, I'm thinking like, well, I need to start looping the pose again. So, I would just grab the first pose, very first pose, copy with the middle mouse button, and then paste it on frame 100 there, and then just move it along. So then I know where the hand plant is going to be, and I can kind of adjust from there. And where am I at? So with this part, one thing I want to mention is, when you have a hand or a limb and it kind of goes behind the body, like this one's about to, it's just good to keep that in view, because if you have it like this, right, and it disappears and then it pops out all of a sudden, it just feels kind of weird. Like it catches your eye and it doesn't feel super smooth. So you usually want to like make sure your eye can follow the hand, So always leave like a little bit of fingers here, and then the next pose is it coming out. That's kind of how I work anyway. It just makes it easier for me to like. It makes things feel smoother, I think, because then your eye can follow where that stuff is going. Whereas if the hand gets completely hidden for a couple of frames and then pops out all of a sudden, it just feels a bit jarring sometimes. And you're like, oh, and you don't know why it feels like you're being distracted by something. And I think it's because your eye isn't able to follow where it goes. It just kind of disappears and appears again.
Yep.
So I'll usually try to keep something in view, so you can track that kind of arc through the fingers and then back out. Yeah, it's just something I usually do. What's next? So yeah, he's getting there.
Yeah.
I'm still in blocked at this point, and I'm an hour in, so I try to stay in blocked a lot, like as much as possible, really. Where do I time it? So there's a point where I start moving the keys, because until that point, there we go. It was all the keys were still on 10, right? So then I kind of, at some point, I just think I need to start, to visualize this as like with timing. So going from just blocking poses out on random keys, and then this is where I start adjusting, and just kind of trying to push things. And I usually try to have it so that the push-offs are quite quick and then the hang time is longer.
Right.
It just usually gives a bit of a nicer timing. Let's move on. We're running out of time.
So do you start building in, any sort of subtleties in terms of overlap with the head or follow through into the blocking, or do you get into spline and then start doing that?
I think if I already know, like if I know I'm going to smear something or, stretch something, I usually add that to the blocking.
Okay.
I think I do actually start doing a little bit of squash and stretch in the body around here. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'll often like delay the head a little or squash or drag the if the hips come down, I usually delay the head and the torso a little. And then on the push-up, I push the chest down like this.
Yeah.
Just to squash a little, and you just get that little feeling of it. Some rigs are better than others for this stuff. Like some you can really scale. Some it squashes and stretches really well.
Yeah.
And some, even if it doesn't, like you can usually at least get a feeling of it by delaying the head or translating the torso up. You know, you don't necessarily need scale controls and things. Yeah, let's go ahead a bit. So I go into Spline about here. This is where it all goes wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. We've all been there.
I think I just get to a point where I'm like, okay, I think I need to visualize it now and make sure that nothing looks completely broken. So sometimes I go to Spline and then go back to blocking if I panic too much and it just looks horrible.
Right.
I'm like, I probably need to add more keys here. So yeah, it's kind of looks at the floaty, you know, like I definitely need to work on the arcs, which I kind of start doing here. You know, I usually start with the hips.
Yep.
Like the Y translation. So you get, you know, more of like this kind of thing. That's too flat. I'm drawing with a mouse right now, so that's why it's not very good. Yeah, I usually start with the hips and then everything, because I work in IK as well, then I kind of have to adjust the rest. But yeah, I basically just go through and just start tweaking the graph editor. I try not to add too many keys if possible, too many keyframes. Try to keep it to the blocking, but then it never stays like that. I always have to add you know, more and more keys, but try to keep it as simple as possible, just so that if I do need to tweak it, you know, I can very easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's starting
fantastic
to look like something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I don't even know, would this be possible? Would there be a human out there that could do this? I don't know.
Probably.
But, you know, as long as it kind of feels believable in somewhere, like, you know, he's actually shifting his weight and, you know, it makes sense from that perspective, like a physics perspective, then it's usually believable, even if, you know, it's impossible.
Well, that's right. Yeah. That's a lot of animation out there. It's a lot of stuff we couldn't actually physically do ourselves, but as long as it's grounded in some kind of reality, then you suspend belief, right? Disbelief.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Get to the end so we can see. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this, but it's you know, again,
so
like
go on.
Sorry, go on.
No,
I was just gonna say, you know, I was just trying to show that, you know, you can do these pretty quickly. They're quite good just to like practice as well. I'd say you probably do need the basic level of knowledge for walk cycles, because you kind of need to know, or it helps a lot at least. I wouldn't start with this as a walk cycle. I'd definitely do the basic walk cycle first.
Learn
just
the
so
fundamentals.
You understand the fundamental. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, you know, you need to know those, you know, the poses that you get, and that will definitely help. Because then when you do one like this, you're like, okay, I know I need the contact pose. I know I need this. I know how like weight gets shifted across, you know, limbs and things. Yeah, so it's definitely important to do that first.
Right.
But yeah, if you, here I was just, again, I was looping it with, hang on, where am I at? There you go. Look at him. He's having a great time. Look at this.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I loop it again with offset, and it's a good way to. There you go. So I'm adjusting that now because he's on the center. I can now play with speeds. So if in the game there's a specific speed, like this is set to meters. So if it's like, you know, what am I at now? 4 meters a second. If I knew that, I could set it to 4 meters and then, you know, see how it looked, see if the feet was too slidey, and I can adjust from there.
Right.
Yeah, and then, you know, once you have that, again, you can use that cycle with offset feature.
Fantastic.
And it will just continue it. You know, you don't have to copy and paste all the keys again.
Yep.
And then, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how it turned out.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's inspired some people out there.
I mean, I think the challenge is over now, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So I'm a bit late for this, but probably should have done this earlier. But it's, I think just as a challenge in general, you know, if you just want to do this, like I said, you can do it. You don't have to overthink it. Just do like a quick one, and you'll learn something from it. You know, you learn about how, you know, you would shift your weight from your hand to whatever. You know.
Yeah.
I think they're just quick little things you can do.
Yeah.
And because it's not for a challenge, then you can just do it and not have to worry about how it ends up.
Yeah. And it breaks your mind out of the usual way of thinking as well. You're forced to come up with a different way to make someone move, and that's such an important thing as well, especially as you were showing with those pose sheets. It was getting different kind of movements and poses and how the character would react. So even just taking this same pose again and doing it but with a completely different way of moving, you know, so you're still taking the same pose, but it's forcing you to come up with creative ways to solve a problem.
Yeah, I mean, that could, yeah, exactly. That could be a challenge in itself, you know, just put out, you know, a pose and then see what everyone comes up with. Because, you know, depending on the pose, people might come up with drastically different cycles.
Yep.
Despite it being the same pose. So
exactly.
Yeah, that'd be. And I was thinking you could do it with anything. It doesn't have to be a walk cycle, you know, it could be an attack, you know, if I just took this pose and tried to make like a special attack out of it.
Yep.
You know, and just see what happened. You know, you have to use that pose, but like from there, you can do whatever you want.
For sure.
You know, you could do it. It doesn't always have to be a run cycle.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Thanks, Adam, for sharing your process with us. That was great.